Greetings from the Alexandrina Council. Let's meet the driving force behind the Alexandrina community. Mayor Keith Parks, Deputy Mayor Councillor Margaret Gardner, CEO Nigel Morris, West Ward, Councillor Bill Coomans, Councillor Lou Nicholson, Councillor Michael Scott, North Ward, Councillor Craig Maidment, Councillor Sue Miller, Councillor Christy Thornton, South Ward, Councillor Margaret Gardner, Councillor Millie Livingston, and finally, Councillor Peter Oliver.
Good evening. Welcome to our council meeting of the 15th of July 2024. An audio recording of the meeting will be made for minute-taking purposes and it will last the length of the open meeting. The audio file will be available on the council website after the draft minutes have been circulated. I'd like to welcome our elected members. We have no apologies or leaves of absence. I'd like to welcome our Chief Executive Officer, Nigel Morris, our General Manager Community, Stacey Batson, our General Manager Infrastructure, Alan Harvey, Acting General Manager Corporate, David Heath, and some of our other staff who are here as required. I ask you all to please stand for the acknowledgement of owners and the local government prayer. The Alexandrina Council and its communities acknowledge the Narrandjeri, Paramount and Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters of our council district. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to grant thy blessing upon the works of this council. Guide us in our deliberations for the advancement and the true welfare of the people of this district. Thank you. Just to remind elected members, if a member has an interest in a matter which will be before council at this meeting, they are asked to disclose the interest to the council and provide full and accurate details of the relevant interest at the beginning of the meeting, and members are reminded they must also declare their interest and provide details at the time the relevant item arises for consideration. We have a declaration from Councillor Oliver which relates to a matter which is in the confidential section of the agenda, and also Councillor Livingston has a similar conflict which is also in the confidential section. Item 1 is the minutes of the council meetings held on the 17th of June 2024 and the 24th of June 2024, and there's a recommendations that they be received. Moved Councillor Maidment. Seconded Councillor Gardner. Is there any discussion relating to those minutes? If not, we'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 2 is adjourned debate. There is none. Item 3 is presentations and deputations. We have 3 deputations, but first we do have a presentation. And Councillor Scott was late, but I'm glad he did eventually get here, because we'd like to present Councillor Scott with a certificate and congratulate him on 10 years service to local government. So 3.1 is a deputation from the Stormwater Disaster Group at Middleton, and we have Rose Kentish and Janice Haynes who would like to present to us. Welcome. Go ahead. Do you need more than 5 minutes?
Yes, I was just about to request, could we have 10 minutes?
Yep.
Mr. Mayor,
I'll just ask them. Everybody in favour of that? Yep. Thank you.
Can I be heard? Is the microphone loud enough? Thank you. The Middleton storm happened 19 months ago. This is our third presentation to you on our flood disaster. Mitigation is critically urgent, and we urge elected members and staff to act with us now. Let me remind you of the history. I'm Janice Haynes. You may remember me. I've contacted elected members individually and frequently over the last 19 months. Our property was surrounded by water and we were completely flooded on the 12th of November, but our home was spared. At 6 p.m. on that night, I stood on Mill Terrace and saw the equivalent of the River Murray swirling completely around our home, 1 metre from all of our doors, nobody in sight, no police, no SES, no CFS, no vehicles. The fact that I was not traumatised like my inundated neighbours gave me the impetus to get action on their behalf. I waited a week. I thought, this doesn't seem right. Why hasn't anyone come to see how our town was coping? But I wasn't sure if this was the thing that should happen or not. I spoke to young Bella Vincent from Big Surf, who had lost her home and her business, and I said, what do you think, Bella? And her response left me in no doubt. So I began contacting repeatedly every service I could think of, including councillors. This is now a week after the flood. I started with emails, imploring you to take responsibility and hold an urgent community meeting before Christmas 2022. I really believe that you would find a date and a time that December because you would all understand the urgency due to the damage done to our community. I then began phoning the council in early December, begging for our voices to be heard at this meeting. I spoke to an elected member in early December who told me and others in Middleton it wasn't council's responsibility to hold a meeting. Followed by, everybody's moved on, Janice, you're the only one making a fuss. Followed by, all the residents have to do is put in their insurance papers. I then started counting up the numbers of homeless people in Middleton, some who were homeless until the end of last year. That is over 12 months without a home and multiple moves to find accommodation. I got my neighbours on board, my flooded, traumatised neighbours, and mid-December 2022, Rose and I met with the Mayor and the CEO. Our recollection is that we shared the names and addresses of affected residents, providing the first map of how many were affected. I knew that council at that time had absolutely no idea how many people were inundated. We realised then that the administration had no idea how to respond to Middleton ratepayers in our emergency. There was no emergency plan mentioned. Our request for an urgent meeting before Christmas was never arranged. On Christmas Eve 2022, I organised a petition to ask you to hold an urgent meeting to talk to the residents of Middleton. By then you knew that over 20 homes and businesses were wrecked, unsafe and unlivable. We persisted. On January the 19th, our action group organised a walk around the town to show yourselves the railway culverts and the scope of the flood. 110 days post-flood, Council organised a meeting in our hall which was full. Over 100 traumatised and by now very angry residents and business owners. February the 21st, 2023. You actioned our request for a hydrologist report. Why did it take over a year to receive the report? When it was presented to Council, I think it was last February, were you concerned that it contained inadequate, incomplete data and lacked a large portion of relevant information about the flood? When I saw a copy of the report, thanks to Lou Nicholson, I again sent you each an email to ensure you could identify what was missing. And I'm wondering, it's rhetorical, did anyone act on that? This long-awaited hydrologist report was presented to residents on March the 23rd. By then, we all knew what was missing. We interrupted proceedings and passed a vote of no confidence on the report. As a direct result of this no confidence motion, Stacey and Alan were finally appointed to talk to Middleton residents in May 2024. This is exactly what we had been asking for since November 22. So much wasted time and money, not to mention additional trauma and psychological angst for our community. Thank you very much, Stacey Batson, and thank you, Alan Harvey. General Managers and of Community and Infrastructure. You listened, you learnt, and now you are responding. I get to just comment on one aspect of their report, is page 18 of 440. In this context, the storm event that hit the region and specifically Middleton was not declared by the state government. We understand that, but our first request, and I think we've got about 6 or 7, please get back to our Middleton Storm Group with the date and type of content that was presented to the Zone Emergency Management Committee. We understand that this committee has, at its fingertips, immediate support for those experiencing disaster, and we want to know when they were notified and why there was no support for our disaster, the largest disaster on the southern Fleurieu in living memory. Thank you.
Our second request, tonight we want you to pass this report. Our third request, we want more emphasis put on the topography of the second creek, which since being filled in has changed the topography of Middleton. But in addition to that, there was movement of water across farming land, down Flagstaff Hill, through the township of Middleton. And if you look at the report, it talks more to this and addresses questions around whether, for example, the enlargement of the culverts on Goolwa Road need to be addressed, replaced, increased to reduce the possibility of obstruction and this kind of event happening again. The improvement of the stormwater system along Mill Terrace from Goolwa Road to the creek to deal with the general stormwater. The improvement of the stormwater behaviour along Flagstaff Hill Road. There's quite a lot of things that need to be addressed beyond the creek. Our fourth request, the hydrologist needs to correct the report to include SES data collected in February 2023 because it contains really detailed information from Middleton residents and businesses, and also from interviews taken place by Alan and Stacey this year. There's a lot of qualitative data that can make that report correct. As it stands, it is based on false data. Our request number 5, our fifth request, that stormwater management must be a priority in this year's budget, 24-25, for Middleton. The recommendations in the report that stands before you tonight say that financial risk is low, reputational risk is high, community risk is high. Just think about that, please. Because we want you not to forget that deaths on William Street, in the Caravan Park, on Padman Terrace, on our street, on Mill Terrace, they were avoided despite water depths of over 1.6 metres being measured and with high water velocity. And that's just luck. There is no excuse now but to act with urgency and to really consider seriously the report that's being put in front of you tonight. Because some of the recommendations, yes, they require a decision of funding, but a number of the recommendations in this report can be achieved, and these are the words of the two general managers sitting to our left. They can be achieved using current resourcing and budgets. So why are we waiting? And so our sixth request, and it's our final request tonight, is to look at the creek, clear the creek. It's also a recommendation in the falsely based hydrology report is to clear the creek. You have the equipment, you have the people, it's core business. You are recruiting on getting back to basics. It's basic business to take care of the creek. And if you look at the report, it talks about removing vegetation that would inhibit water flow and creek capacity. Yes, it's discovered that it's mainly in private ownership. But you have been able to identify the owners. So what is holding you back from issuing a notice of intent to clear? You do this with farmers if there's fire hazards. Please approve this report tonight, because if you don't, and that these actions aren't clearly identified out of this report and funded by September, then we've been advised and you leave us with no other choice but to commence legal action. We thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose. And Janice, any questions? Anybody? No, but thank you very much for your time and for your presentation. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. 3.2 is a deputation relating to the Goolwa Community Centre, and Di Gordon, who's the centre manager, will speak to us. Go, Di. Do you need more than 5 minutes?
Probably.
Yep, so we're happy with that? Yep, okay, thanks.
There we go. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Di Gordon and I'm the centre manager at the Goolwa Community Centre. Been there about 3.5 years now. And I wanted to just present to you a bit of an update, information session and an update about the centre. Okay, we're an independent not-for-profit centre, and our core business is to develop the connections, capacity and skills of the community. So we provide a range of services and programs that are identified through a community needs analysis so that we know that we're programming the right things for our community. We're an inclusive community centre for people of all ages and abilities. We offer a range of programs and services, including no cost and low cost programs, evening and weekends, and we do have some workshops and sessions in Middleton and Port Elliot as well as Goolwa. We have very well established partnerships with a range of organisations and agencies, and we have a social enterprise for reinvestment, which is a low-cost gardening service. Okay, so we identify what we're going to program according to a community needs analysis. So we look at things like council documents, the Alexandrina Council Wellbeing Action Plan, and we like to think that we work hand in glove with the wellbeing team and deliver on a range of plans for council. We also look at other documents like Mission Australia's youth survey. We look at Victor Harbour council documents as well and plans, and village conversations from Goolwa. And we also do our own surveys of community to find out what people think the community need and what sort of things and interests the community want. We ask people about when it suits them to have programs, and we ask them about volunteering, if they'd like to come and volunteer with the centre. And we always ask people for feedback about our programs so that we work on a cycle of a continuous improvement. So some of the services we provide for community are things, as I said, the Goolwa Green Thumbs, which is a low-cost gardening service. That was originally established as a council-run program to help people maintain their independent living in their homes. And it's a fantastic service, so people can ring up and ask for low-level gardening services. So we send out 2 volunteers and charge $20 an hour for the service, which is fantastic. So at the moment, in the past year, Goolwa Green Thumbs have completed 419 jobs, have 109 clients, with 16 volunteers, and they have worked a total of 1,861 hours. So it's a really impressive service. It's a good fit for the centre, and it's a good fit for the community. And, you know, it also provides contact for people who are sometimes socially isolated, and, you know, the volunteers might get a cup of tea or a bicky or something like that. We also have a grief support group that meets twice a month, and that actually came about because there was nothing available for people who were suffering through grief. So we partnered with the Anglican Church and Centre Care to offer a series of grief workshops, and the grief support group was born out of that. So that's been running about 18 months now, and is a much needed service. We have a food distribution program, so we have 5 or 6 volunteers who pick up food from Woolies every morning and distribute it to 5 locations around Goolwa. That just helps provide some food security for the community. We have, once a year we run an Auslan course, and again that came about from a gentleman who came into the centre. He has a multi-system degenerative disorder and will lose his speech one day. So he was wanting to know whether we'd run an Auslan course to build a more inclusive community. So we applied for a wellbeing grant through Alexandrina Council, and we have now trained over 50 people in this community in Auslan or sign language, which is a great outcome. We have computer support, so we have a volunteer who helps people with their laptops, phones and tablets, and that's a really popular service. So he works with people one-on-one on Tuesdays and Friday mornings. We also have coffee pod recycling and a tax help program that starts this coming term. So every Wednesday we have an ATO volunteer who helps people on low incomes complete their tax. We have budgeting workshops coming up, so a free community information session around how to construct a budget, and we're working with Junction to provide some longer term workshops for people on different facets of financial literacy. We have scanning and photocopying. Lots of people come in wanting information about the community, us being a community centre, and we also hire out spaces as well. So we do lots of things in the way of services for community. Now that's just a snapshot of all of the sort of interest courses we run, because we all know how important social connection is for community, particularly post-COVID. So people are really looking for ways to connect with each other and support each other. We also have a lot of people come into the centre who are new to Goolwa, a lot of people actually. So, you know, our courses are based around arts, education, wellbeing, and we provide a really broad range of activities. And as you can see, the top picture there is a children's school holiday workshop, which is a wood carving workshop, and the bottom picture was a portrait workshop that we ran some time ago. So there's lots and lots of things for people to choose from. And of course, you know, if we have other requests, we're happy to accommodate and program for that too. The last couple of years, we've also run a program for socially isolated and vulnerable women called the Fleurieu Phoenix program. That was funded through the Department of Social Services under the Strong and Resilient Communities grant. So we were able to advertise work with partners, so it's a partnership-based program, and partners have referred in women that meet that socially isolated criteria. And through the program, it's been the most beautiful program. There are lots of women who have benefited from it. So as you can see, there were 26 women referred into the program from 10 agencies, 67 referrals out to 14 agencies for support, 18 women engaged in the program. Now, because that was such a successful program, we were invited by the Department of Social Services to upscale the program. So we have developed a proposal to provide the program into the communities of Malang and Strathalbyn, and that proposal was accepted. So the next 12 months, those programs will be located in those communities and provide opportunities for women there and their social connections. So the aim of it obviously is to build women's confidence, social connections and knowledge of agency support, so they will know where to go to get extra help. And the second part of the program helps them to develop life skills and plans for the future. So some of the outcomes from that program, we had 2 women that went back into paid employment, 2 women volunteering. 6 of the women from this program have put their hands up to become mentors in Strathalbyn and Malang to help other women, which is a fantastic outcome. 1 woman who started a social enterprise, 4 women have started or returned to study, and 2 women who currently are leading support groups, 1 elected to the SACOS board, and 13 women have integrated into the Goolwa Community Centre and attend programs there. The rest of the women have also found other programs within the community. So it's really set out to beat the social isolation for women. We have lots and lots of partners that we work with because we all acknowledge that,
excuse me, Di.
if we...
excuse me, we're over 10 minutes. How much more is there to go? Not that it's not interesting, but we're limited by time, that's all.
I can't believe it's 10 minutes already. All right, I'll skip through. Okay. Can I have a couple more minutes?
A couple, because we need to have a little bit of room for questions, and we've only got 15 all up, so...
Okay. Okay, so we've got lots of other programs coming up. The Phoenix 2 program, we're working with the Department of the Office for Problem Gambling to develop a social program that gives options for people who have addictions or who are frequent users of electronic gaming machines. We have about 50 volunteers in different roles at the centre. So in the last year, they've undertaken 8,021 hours of volunteering in the past year. We know that around about 82% of the people that come to the centre are women, 14% are people living with a disability, 3.2% ATSI, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, 3.5% culturally and linguistically diverse, and 56% of our participants are aged over 60. Most come from Goolwa. Oh. I'm missing one there. By far our largest age group is that 60 to 69 group, which really reflects our community. We know that around half the participants come from Goolwa, 55%, but 19% of our participants also come from Victor Harbour. Now these are the 3 key slides I'd like you to look at. One is the growth of programs. So you can see that we started in 2021 with 18 programs, and we've steadily increased our offerings to 109 in the last year. And the same with the participants. So we started 2021 with 146, And the last count, we had 570 participants. So we've roughly doubled our growth in 2 years. So in terms of visitation, we've grown from 1,596. We now sit at 4,948 visitations. So that's people coming along to sessions, and that's just in the last year. And we've delivered, which means that we've delivered over 4,948 contact hours with our community. So we're rapidly getting to the stage where we're running out of room, not just for our participants and a growing community, because we know that Goolwa's growth is expected to increase to 39,409 by 2041. So we know there are a lot of people moving to this region, either through the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan or people that are heading this way anyway. So we have put in a registration of interest for the lease on Customs House, and I know that the ROIs have closed for that now, and Council will meet in August. But I'd like you to strongly consider how we can continue to respond to our growing community, which is why we've obviously applied for the lease of Customs House. We've demonstrated that we've had this huge growth, and we know that Goolwa has enormous projected growth, as does Middleton and Port Elliot. We want to be able to retain and preserve and celebrate the iconic heritage status of Customs House as a significant building on the wharf. We need more space for workshops, staff, partnerships, parking and storage. We would like, the Customs House has some space there that we could provide a dedicated youth space, and that's one of the programs that we're offering this coming term, is a program for young people, an arts program. We also, we're great at partnerships and workshops and events, so we know that we can activate the Wharf Precinct and have some really lovely workshops and programs there, as well as outdoor events. We're also really good at getting grants, so we would seek to get funding to help us with any upgrades and call on our goodwill in the community to help us on that journey. And we know that we've got loads and loads of community support. We've had 273 people who have signed who have backed our registration of interest, 97 MailChimps and 4 letters of support from agencies to support our registration of interest. So I'd like to thank you for listening. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Di. You've gone way over time, but are
I
there any
normally
questions? We're a long way over time, but are there any? Good presentation. But
Thank you.
have to squeeze it a bit tighter next time. Well done.
Oh, and as fast
Thanks
as
very
I
much.
could.
3.3 is a deputation regarding a proposed skate park at Middleton, and we've got Dr. Adrian Gearing and Marie Gearing would like to speak to us about that. So welcome.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. As a father of 4 adult children and grandfather of 6 grandchildren and a former teacher, I fully support a recreational skateboard park. However, I strongly oppose the development of the skate park on Mill Terrace for a number of reasons. As a local community, we have a responsibility to honour previous generations about how to use this land, and we only have one shot to get this right. The pristine environment in Mill Terrace needs to be quarantined and protected for the local community and not covered with concrete. I and others in the community are concerned that the council would highlight things like flood terrain and 360-degree view over preserving the pristine land and its conservation. With many concerns, I think the limited collaboration of this project concerns us, having only 2 small groups of 10 adults and school children. I am surprised that this input can provide the breadth and depth of discussion necessary prior to a final draft. I'm trying to understand how such a limited think tank provides rigorous data collection. The local community obviously is concerned about the visual pollution in this pristine location. You will note that the toilet block at the end of Mill Terrace has appropriate wall art to minimise visual pollution in that area. And that's great. Another matter of concern is the report that of a petition submitted to the April notice of this meeting. It does not meet council code. Of the 354 people who signed this petition, around 50% or 177 people did not include their full addresses. I went through it myself and found that I was surprised. Moreover, 25% or 89 people were from outside our council area. So how do these people represent the community when they don't even live here in this area? And data and research suggest that there needs to be a well-resourced management in a skate park environment because of what happens. As locals, we'd like to hear the council's plans to manage and finance a skate park. For example, disposal of rubbish, and there will be a lot, security cameras to monitor the safety of skateboarders and the local environments, especially local houses nearby. Traffic congestion and parking. Already that's at a premium in this area. Any time on a day, on a Saturday or something, you see the cars come right up to our house. I am aware that other locations have been suggested. The one we strongly advocate is the proposed reserve on the corner of Port Adelaide Road and Port Elliot Road and Mindacowie Terrace. We feel that we've not been communicated with. We're local people who take great pride in Middleton, its history and its amazing environment. So I'd like to hand over to my wife Mari now, who'll continue on. Thank you.
I just have a couple of thoughts to
Sorry,
express.
I should have asked you before we started, but at the little break there, do you need more than 5 minutes?
Yes,
Yeah,
10 minutes
okay,
we
that'll
could,
be
thank
fine.
you. Sorry, my apologies.
Thank you. I just have a couple of points, and I must say that when I first saw that final concept plan on the website on Thursday night, I was very surprised. In fact, I was totally shocked at the size. How much concrete is going to be poured around that area? It's huge. I want to say I'm not a First Nation person, but I would ask the council, are you being respectful for these people? Because I haven't seen anywhere any communication you might have had with them. It may not have been made public yet, it may have been, but I just would really like to know how that's working out for you. I'm concerned as a local. We need to hear their local voice. I have a picture in my house of, taken many years ago, it's from the history of Middleton area, of one of the First Nations families camped down in that area, so I know they were definitely there. How are we supporting the cultural and the ancestral heritage by pouring concrete on this land? Moreover, I've got a question about using school children. How do the school children understand the impact of laying concrete on this particular land? I'm really concerned that you have school children giving feedback, because I would question that you're putting children's limited feedback over preserving a very special place. Of course kids want to have a skateboard park, but let's just consider what they would really understand about that area. As local residents, we have known this area intimately for over 22 years and love it. In summertime and school time especially, cars are parked way up Mill Terrace and on the grass. In fact, some cars drive so fast we're thankful there hasn't been a fatal accident in this narrow street where children walk and ride their bikes, and you've got dogs everywhere as well, which is great. So how does Council propose to manage the increase in the cars, the traffic, the parking? So as a mother and a grandmother, as Adrian's mentioned our kids, I fully support a recreational skate park. I spend a lot of time with teenagers myself, even still. However, I must strongly oppose this development on Mill Terrace. As citizens, we do have an obligation to preserve this local heritage and treat it with the respect it does deserve. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions, anybody? Councillor Maidment.
Thanks for offering an alternative place for this skate park. You talk about Mindacowie Terrace and Port Elliot Road, which has now been sold to a private developer. Perhaps once this draft goes out, that could be an option for people to garner together and approach those people that have purchased that land, because I understand that will be developed for housing, and they might have to give up a certain amount for recreation purposes or open space purposes. So that's what my angle would be. I get what you're saying about the cement on Mill Terrace. I just wonder, with the demographic of Middleton, how many 60-plus-year-olds are going to be using the skate park? That was my because it's the Taj Mahal of skate parks. It's fantastic. It's better than a lot of the other skate parks in the area.
Any further questions? Councillor Cummins and then Councillor Scott. You go.
Yeah, thanks very much for your presentation. And I guess when you did make contact with me, I asked for your thoughts on the possibility of using Mindacowie Terrace and Port Elliot Road as an alternate site. And I guess when it does go to public consultation, we can expect some input from you and others on that particular aspect of it. The other thing, I guess, is that the cost for something like this is around $1 million. And I wonder what your thoughts are in relation to the flood mitigation that other presenters have been asking for. And I'm not sure whether you were affected by the floods.
Yes.
You were on Mill Terrace, so
Yes.
I assume you were.
Yes, our shed and tanks are sliding down. And that's because the water ingressed, and we're in touch with obviously the insurance companies. It's pretty awful. You could go in there and a ball rolls straight down like that because everything slopes.
And my understanding with the original presenters for a skate park was it was a proposed site. I don't think they were adamant it had to go there. So, there certainly appears to be some alternatives, and maybe that's something that Council will really need to look at.
Yeah, I think that we're totally for a skateboard park. The big issue, as I was talking to the Mayor before this meeting, is the location. And I think I would really think that the location on the Port Elliot Road and Mindacowie Terrace is a great one, because firstly I think it's in plain sight. It's just there. You don't have to go anywhere down to a dead-end street to get there. I think that's the second thing. Being in a public area will discourage antisocial behaviour, which the research shows very clearly is often associated with skateboard parks. And I think the third thing is that the site provides a visible and easy to find location, because it's right there and with close proximity to the main road through Middleton, rather than being on the current proposed no-through road. And I think the other thought that I had was ample parking can be provided there. which will alleviate the parking problems that often occurs along Mill Terrace. The last one too, being visible from the Cockle train, the skate park will be attracted to families, so they won't have to advertise where it is. So I think it's a great location, that, and we really support that totally.
Councillor Scott.
Yes, my question is possibly not to the deputies, but the in relation to the Strathalbyn skate park, is there a connection between that skate park and crime in that area? I'm a little alarmed at the relationship between, or the perceived relationship between the skate park and crime, and also the location, the corner of Middleton Terrace and Portet Road. The children have got to cross a railway line, cross a main road, very busy intersection that is not fully resolved. I'm afraid I could not support it there purely from a safety point of view, whereas out down the back it's centralised, and even if that's not the place, but away from that busy corner for young people would really worry me. So, thank you.
May I make a comment there? We do live near to the half pipe that exists now. We do get vandalism, people try to get through the windows, we've had people climbing the fence, we've even had a motorbike dumped down the back, a motorbike that was stolen. Sometimes people are throwing stones at the window, so it is a bit disconcerting in that we accept it because, you know, we love the environment and we're glad that people can use it mostly, but these things are happening mostly at night, and sometimes people are actually camping out in the park, under the trees, that you can't see them from anywhere else, but we can see them from our windows. So there's a bit of stuff going on.
Could I make a comment?
Just for a clarification, the one in Strathalbyn is on a busy road, and it's very visible as you drive past it. It's on the bypass road through Strathalbyn. Yeah.
I think the whole thing of this thing is not that there's crime there, but the research, I did quite a research of the literature on the internet, and it was very strong, and probably there was an international base, that there was always something associated with these kinds of things. Now, it's not to say that will happen down here, but there's a lot of research that think that quite often it attracts people who do wrong things. Now, whether that's of this thing, I doubt it. I've seen a lot of little kids there, and they're great kids, you know. So, but I think that I'm just quoting the research, that I don't like to really make any comments without being research based. And I suggest if you just put in that into your computer and ask them what literature is there about problems with those, you know. But I don't necessarily think that will be a big issue here in this town, but it could be.
Any further questions? I just tell you, when we opened the one at Strathalbyn, we had the kids there, demonstrations on board riding, and we said to the kids, this is yours, you look after it, you care for it, we're not going to clean it up, take care. And we've never had a problem. We've had no vandalism, no graffiti. It's just fantastic. Mums come along and sit on the benches and watch the kids. It's a great thing. So the kids took ownership of it. That's what we've found. And Mount Compass has been very much the same. And that's not quite on a busy road, but it's still very much owned by the kids. And they do look after it. So there's one good thing about it, yeah. Okay. But thanks very much for your presentation. It's appreciated.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Kindly for listening.
Item 4 is petitions, and there are none. Item 5 is questions with notice. 5.1 is a question from Councillor Maidment regarding a path in Strathalbyn. The question and the answer is in your agenda. Item 6 is questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Maidment.
Thank you. Can we have some commentary from a staff member about the proposed fast food outlet in Strathalbyn being built on a very busy intersection and within 50 metres of both a primary school and high school, and what mechanisms are in place for the community to have their say on this proposal?
Through the Chair, I will ask Cameron to come forward and speak to that, but as far as the community consultation goes, what Cameron's about to explain is under the Act, that there is no ability to do that, but I will hand over to Cameron.
No worries, thank you, Chair. So with the proposed fast food outlet, as members are aware, an application has been made to the Fleurieu assessment panel for review. So as part of that process, I guess I'll start with the notification. So the planning system is quite specific about what types of development need to be notified. So a staff member couldn't on their own accord choose to notify something because of the potential community reaction to that development. So the system's quite legislative and quite specific about what types of developments need notification, what types don't. So with this one in particular, we were aware that it was there was going to be a lot of public reaction. So we were confident that it didn't need notification, but we did get that confirmed with legal advice as well, just to make sure that that issue is completely resolved. So unfortunately, there is no opportunity for the public to provide input through the development application process. The key issues that the assessment will focus on, as Councillor Maidment has highlighted, is going to be traffic. So as acknowledged, it is on quite an interesting intersection where you've got a roundabout, you've got two arterial roads, and then you've also got the turn off to Langhorne Creek. So there's quite a lot of different intricacies to be considered in that intersection. So we're just going through that process now. So it's gone to the Department for Infrastructure and Transport, and ultimately they'll have the power to direct staff to make a decision to, whether it can go ahead or not simply on infrastructure grounds. So the applicant has provided a traffic report that's currently going through that review process internally. That will be reviewed by the State Department, and then collectively some decisions will be made around the acceptability of that. But we've got traffic engineers that are looking at it, and we'll go through that vetting process. In terms of I just wanted to, while I've got the opportunity, just to highlight that there are limitations in the assessment, as I noted to members, but there is some community concern about the proximity to the schools, and at a staff level we acknowledge those concerns because there are obviously real concerns. However, our assessment, the planning and design code is structured in such a way that it doesn't sort of mingle with public health policy. So there really needs to be a position from the state, from a public health standpoint, to not allow these types of facilities near schools for council to have any influence through that assessment process. So we are very limited in that respect. But our considerations will be focused on the traffic. The traffic is obviously the big issue, as well as how it interfaces with the adjoining residential. Traffic management, parking, hours of operation, signage, illuminance, those things that we would expect to be dealt with, and materiality as well, like the design of the building and setbacks. Thank you.
Thanks, Cameron. And Councillor Thornton.
Can I just ask a follow-up to that? In terms of the traffic management assessment and stuff, I've heard around the place that they're currently doing that. Do you know if they've done it, that they're currently doing it, or they will do it?
Through the chair, so the application was submitted with the traffic management report. So I understand the traffic assessment was done. I do understand some comments were made that some people were on site recently, which it was actually me. So I was out there having a look at the site with one of our other officers, and we were asked a question of the public what we were doing, and we said we were just looking around. I think there was a misconception that we were counting traffic, but rest assured that has gone through a full process, and again, there's still a lot of steps along the way for those traffic issues to find resolution.
I think the concern was that it was being undertaken during school holidays, so it wouldn't be true to what the traffic is. So, yeah.
Correct, and the report, I can provide the date at a later date, but the report date on the report is well before the school holiday period, so yeah.
Any further questions? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just picking up on a question from our first deputation regarding the Middleton flood event. Can I ask what information was provided to the Zone Emergency Management Committee after the flood regarding the impact in Middleton? Thank you.
Through the Chair, I might get Alan to actually explain what that committee does, but I can also say that information on the event was given to the very next Zone Emergency Management Committee meeting, but I think that the function of that committee should be explained a bit more by Alan.
Yep, thank you through the Chair. So, yeah, the CEO has answered the question around when information was provided. So, just to provide some additional information on what the ZEC or the ZM or the ZEMC does, Zone Emergency Management Committee, it is a group of councils from this area, Fleurieu Hills and Kangaroo Island. It also contains emergency services as well as other organisations who have some part to play in, and state government has some part to play in emergency management, planning, response and recovery. That group in itself is a planning function. So it brings people together and they talk through the risks that the region has and how we might plan better into the future, learning from what's happened before. So it works on a cycle of continuous improvement. So it's a planning function. It's not a response function. What sits beneath that is a thing called the Zone Emergency Support Team. Now that ZEST is a response mechanism, but it generally only kicks in where you've got larger scale events occurring, and that takes nothing away from the magnitude of what happened in Middleton. But if I explain that in terms of context of what it actually looks at, so it looks at like things like major fire events, storm events that cover regional, so more than one council area, the state blackout that occurred a few years ago, that was another example. COVID was another example where they activated. That is actually a role the police undertake and then bring support people in to help through a response phase. So, yeah, that's the distinction between the Zone Emergency Management Committee, which is what we're talking about, and there is a response arm to that, which but only kicks in certain situations.
Any further questions? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I have two questions. Thank you. The timeline for council, what is the timeline for council considering the 3 service reviews that objectives were to be completed by the 30th of June, and that's the Business Alexandrina and the Business Hub, the Strathalbyn Town Hall and Centennial Hall, and the Visitor Information Services. I'm just looking for an indicative timeline, please.
Through the Chair, we have a presentation to elected members next Monday at the briefing, so that will progress that, and then it will come to Council soon after that, depending on the feedback we get next Monday.
And my second question was, it relates to the Sport and Recreation Precinct at Victor Harbour. In the 2020 feasibility report, on page 18 in the background paper, I think it was, there was a dot point seeking funding from neighbouring councils. Has council been approached for any funding, or do you think we might be for that precinct?
Through the Chair, I remember that line in there, but no, we have not been formally approached by Victor Harbour. I cannot answer on behalf of Victor Harbour their intentions towards us.
Any further questions? Thank you. If not, we'll move on to item 7, which is notice of motions. 7.1 is a motion from Councillor Oliver regarding replacement of the staff survey with a community survey. It's moved by Councillor Oliver. Do you wish to speak to it now? Yeah.
Yes, please, Mayor. Thank you. Yes, just quickly, there's a great opportunity for us to enhance our listening and understanding of community needs on a holistic basis. I've had a lot of interest in this item since the agenda went out, and I have requested a couple of minor amendments. I'm not looking to get rid of the staff survey. What I'm really looking to do is for us to adopt an external focus and transition to a community-wide survey that includes the staff and other stakeholders like contractors, etc. And again, I think this is a great opportunity. I hope you vote for it. And I think the minor amendments just reflect that continue, and I think the data can be analysed accordingly. And I think there can be some profiling in questions to identify demographic information like staff, whether your staff, your age, your village, etc. So please consider. Thank you.
So do we have Councillor Miller, are you seconding that? Is there any discussion? Yep.
Thank you, Worship. I'm really delighted that that Councillor Oliver's put this forward, and I'm happy to second it. I think that I could fiddle around with the wording, but I won't because it's a report that's coming back. But I think this has been a gap as far as I'm aware, and I just really have a question. When the last time the community was surveyed, and if we have any awareness of when that was.
Through the chair, I can't recall a statistically valid survey that was sent out to the community, so I would probably, at a guess, say not in the last 5 years at least.
And just a question, the methodology and all of that would be addressed in such a report that would be coming back as to how it would be completely independent. I would hope we wouldn't write the questions, it would be done by a professional community surveying company, I would imagine.
Through the chair, that's what the report will cover, just to say the methodology that we'd use behind it and how it would differentiate between different demographics, yes.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
Yes, in number 2, I'm just wondering about the wording there, that the staff survey process, that it be replaced with a transition to an appropriate community survey process. I think there's room for both, and separately rather than not necessarily combined, and I just think we don't replace one with the other.
Councillor Scott, the motion in the agenda, the printed agenda, is different to what's on the screen in front of you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councillor Oliver made some slight changes to it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was heading into this.
Any further? Councillor Coomans.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Parkes. Look, I certainly support this. I think we've learnt some lessons. Currently, we have the village conversations, and that normally provides a fair bit of input. We have the budget roadshows, which I think the 3 that we had last time highlights the fact that there's a fair bit of anger in the community, and they do want to have a much stronger voice than they've had in the past. And I think something like this gives them an opportunity to provide input on more than just the village conversations or budget roadshows. So I think this is a good move.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Should have asked Peter if he wanted to reply. Item 8 is administration reports. 8.1 is the Middleton floods update. There's a recommendation there of 11 components. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Nicholson, you have to speak to it.
Thank you. Can I move? Am I moving all of them? Yep. Thank you. I think these recommendations have come on the back of a lot of work and collaboration between council and the community. They have been deeply thought through, and they are very important. They are a crucial part of the step forward in recovering and preparing the Middleton community and wider Alexandrina for events like this in the future. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Oliver. Any discussion? Councillor Coomans.
Yeah, look, congrats to the staff of this report and the 11 recommendations. I think they're right on the ball. I guess we did have some concerns earlier on in terms of the hydrologist report, where it didn't seem to extend to where the thing was actually happening, and it was I think it was probably done desk-based rather than actually going out to talk to people. So I support all 11 recommendations.
Councillor Scott.
Yes, just in 9 and 10, I know 11 says we receive a report in 9 and 10 by August to engage specialist consultants. The question is, I guess it's more of a question than a comment. Don't we have the capacity, at least with the Flagstaff Hill Road one, to develop a plan in-house without having to? I'm just worried about the money that we spend on consultants, and that you know, we're not a bottomless pit, and if we can avoid consultants where possible, is that possible, or are we really committed to having to have consultants in both areas? I realise Mill Terrace is something else again, but it is very much related to Flagstaff Hill Road, I believe.
Through the Chair, we are very conscious of funding and the use of consultants. What we'll do is what we can in-house, but there is certain expertise that we'll bring in, and we'll limit it to those stuff that we need to bring in for.
Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I have a question first, and then subject to the answer to that. And I would have much preferred, when we get 11 recommendations like this, I would have hoped we could have maybe dealt with 1, 3, 9 and 10 and 11 separately. However, when will we receive the first budget review for this financial year?
Through the Chair, we generally do that in October.
And were any council members consulted in the preparation of this report, or provided with any advance copy of it?
Through the Chair, the General Managers have been working with key stakeholders. Those key stakeholders included the ward councillors, so they were provided an early draft copy of this to ensure that it met the needs of what the ward councils had been discussing with their community.
With the leave of and I don't know whether to do this as an amendment or just a variation request, recommendations 1, 3, 9 and 10, I wondered if we could just add the words at the end, for consideration at the quarterly budget review. I just am really mindful that we have so many priorities on our agenda, and I do not in any way, shape or form wish to be interpreted as diminishing from the seriousness and urgency of addressing these issues. It's just a matter for me of timing and considering as part of a budget review, because I think we've seen that all throughout the year we add things in, we take things out, but I just would like to see considered in a budget review process.
So would Councillor Nicholson, you happy to have that addition to it?
Can I only give yes, no, or can I respond?
No, just yes or no.
No at this stage.
So Councillor O'Donnell, so no, they won't. So we won't include them. So is there any further discussion? Yeah. A question?
So in the minutes will reflect that I did attempt to ask for this and it wasn't captured. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
Any further discussion? Do you wish to write a reply? No. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? That's carried unanimously. 8.2 is the Middleton Skate Park community engagement, and there's a recommendation with 3 dot points. Is there a mover for that? Move Councillor Oliver. Do you wish to speak to it? No. Is there a seconder? Councillor Nicholson. Do you wish to speak to it? Yep.
May I ask a question? Will the public consultation include a question on the location? Is that guaranteed, or will we need to have that in the motion?
through the chair, we'll take that on board and make sure that that's in there.
Have I already seconded it? I'd like to seek that is specified in the motion. Can I ask the mover that we put that in there? Thank you. So at dot point 2, that we, in accordance with Council's public consultation policy and community engagement plan in attachment 2, including including consultation on the location. Thank you.
Any further discussion on that? Councillor Truemans?
I'm just waiting for the wording there, in consultation on the location. I'm wondering whether they should include alternate locations. I think what was raised tonight during the presentation was that there will be, or there should be, other proposed locations, and I think that they should be considered. We've got $20,000 on the budget for the concept plan. It's going to cost about $1 million to construct. There's probably no question that there should be a skate park facility, but I just wonder in terms of priorities whether there are other priorities that we should really be looking at rather than this at this stage. Maybe if we were to wait for that parcel land on the corner of Mindacarry and the possibility of a reserve, and one of the drafts was in fact for that to be a reserve on that corner adjacent to the Middleton railway station. And to me, it would seem to be a pretty good location. It would almost become a regional skate park rather than a localised one. And given the size of the thing that's been drafted at the moment, it probably is getting close to being a regional park anyway. And I think it passes by and users of the train and everything, it would be absolutely well used. And I'd really like to see that included, that we further consider that. But it may be a bit early because there is no development approvals for that site at this stage, and there may be some delays before that actually happens. So, but to me, that seems to be a bloody good site. Thank you.
You okay with that? Councillor Thornton?
I think the potential for this coming to the community is great and very exciting, no matter where it ends up. I do think there are a few things missing in terms of, is there going to be lights there? I know the Strathalbyn one was built without lights beforehand, and then it was kind of required. I didn't see any note about having like water taps for people to drink there, and the bins and maintenance and stuff. Is important too, and I think there is scope to add more landscaping, more trees than just shrubs that they've noted, but I think it's exciting for the community still.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Ash. I just have a question, or two questions. I just wonder about the relationship to this recreation, open space and sports strategy that's in development, and if this is intended to precede that, or if it will be informed by that. So that's I guess it's a timing question. And I know that there's reference to the existing skate parks and half pipe ramps, and that they're ageing apart from the Strath and Mount Compass one, and I just wondered if they have a replacement schedule or renewal schedule around them. But I think I'm really excited to hear what the community thinks about this. I think it's great that we're going out to consultation, but yeah, I'm interested in the relationship to the sport and rec strategy.
Through the chair, the sport and rec strategy is not due to be. It's not due to come out, or not come out, or be finalised until 2025, as per the information that we provided on that timeline. It will encompass a lot of different activities from a recreational perspective, both active and passive. So we would envisage that from that perspective, skate parks would be part of that conversation and part of that document. This has come forward because of a petition that was raised, and as a result, we have progressed with this initial phase of this project. There is, from a regional perspective, a skate park in Galway, a skate park in Mount Compass, and a skate park in Strathalbyn. So from a location perspective, it fits in terms of a service or a community service, and one that can be accessed by those groups and those communities. So from a strategic level, it fits.
Any further discussion or questions? Councillor Oliver, do you wish to speak? No? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. (8.3) is the Friends of the Oscar W design and budget for fit out of the Riverboat Centre and Workshop, and there's a recommendation there before you. It's moved Councillor Coomans.
Could I speak? Thank you, Mayor Parks. Gee, what many words can I say about this project? It's been ongoing for the last 4 years, and 4 years in the making, and here we are. The 3 leases are ready to be signed with a proposed special little ceremony following the approval of this recommendation and the approval of the business plan and budget in the next item of business. Over those 4 years, discussions and negotiations have been very detailed, sometimes strained, but have been on a very respectful level over the past 12 months or so. I'd certainly like to congratulate the CEO and his team, especially GM Community Stacey Bateson, in bringing this to finality. I'd also like to thank the passionate committee of the Friends of the Oscar W for the way in which they have conducted themselves in such a professional manner over the time. I'd also like to thank you, Mayor Parks, for your counsel and support with this project, and to my colleague, Councillor Oliver. And also to the rest of my colleagues in council for the way in which you have reacted in a positive manner when the Friends of the Oscar W have made presentations on the layout and themes for the Riverboat Centre. What they plan is nothing like what was in the old shed prior to the project getting off the ground. It will be exciting. We'll cater for visitors of all ages, be interactive and showcase the heritage aspects of the Goolwa Wharf locality as it should be. In doing so, they have engaged with a large cross-section of the pioneers of the area, the boat builders, and will be bringing together what will become a very popular destination for tourists and those who live local, from school kids to the aged. The original budget for the fit-out was $250,000, of which just over $183 remains, which is sufficient to complete the project, as you will see from the report. Fund for some work, like the installation of rails to allow the beam engine to be moved outside, the reintroduction of the folding doors to allow for this at the southern end, and the moving of the main entrance door out of the weather issues have been taken out of the original $250,000 already, which was budgeted. You will see in the agenda that the 8 themes will be included in the design, and Friends of the Oscar W have been working with DLA to develop these themes. You will see the bio on DLA on page 106 of the agenda, that they are indeed a professional outfit and one in which the Friends of the Oscar W have a high level of confidence in, and that they are already delivering great work. There's something like $15,000 in the budget for that. So finally, as the milestone parts of the project work is completed, Council is to make payments on receipt of invoices. So as stated in the conclusion, the Riverboat Centre will deliver a state-of-the-art audio-visual presentation bringing the Goolwa Riverboat history to life. This will incorporate direct online links to promote greater visitor engagement with tourism and hospitality across the Council region. And as the final comment in the report states, full steam ahead. Thank you.
Second, Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, and thanks, Councillor Coombs, for your comments. I'd like to just briefly add to those. I think today this is a great day, and we have the opportunity to celebrate also the freedom and the future of the Oscar W and the crew, and also the Riverboat Centre. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to a brilliant future. And I'd also like to acknowledge the realisation of the grand vision of Rolly Bartlett and the crew going back for such a long time. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Worship. I have 4 questions before I speak on this. So I understand the lease hasn't been signed yet, is that correct? 2 months later? We haven't got a signed lease?
Through the Chair, it's scheduled to be signed later this week. It's been endorsed by not only Council but the Committee of Friends of Oscar W. We're just going to go through the formalities, but I think we're also waiting to see how these 2 reports go as well.
Are the fittings that will be eventually put in here Council owned, or will they be owned by the Friends of the Oscar W, and who's responsible for caring and maintaining them?
Through the Chair, we will own what we put in with the 250,000 all up. All other artefacts will be owned by the Friends of Oscar W, and the maintenance will be ongoing maintenance, which we budget for on a year-to-year basis.
And is this a council project or Friends of the Oscar W project?
Through the Chair, what this is proposing to do is that the Friends of Oscar W will be engaging their contractor, which Councillor Coombs talked about before, DLA, and getting them to project manage it, but that will only be paid upon milestone payments and on receipt of invoices, so it's a combined project between the 2 parties.
May I speak now, please? Your Worship, I would like to, I have no issue with what's here, and I would like to move an amendment, and that's to include an additional point C, and it's based on page 234, I think, that Council note there is no contingency within the remaining budget. However, quotes have already been obtained for the majority of the work, and if there is overspend in any areas, other items can be scaled back. And I'm just taking that verbatim from the report. I just think it's a really important point, and I'd just like that added as part C. I'm moving it as an amendment, please.
Move it as an amendment. It could be a variation, but we can do it as an amendment.
Would you like me to read it out again? Or I've got it written down here. You wish to speak to it? Thank you, Worship. As I said, I have no issue with everything that's here. I think I endorse everything that Councillor Coombs has said. I'm still just a little bit disappointed that 2 months have passed and they haven't signed. It feels like they're waiting on the outcome of this, so if this doesn't get supported, I don't understand what that means. I can't see why it wouldn't be supported, but I really, really hope that we see an executed agreement between everyone so that everybody can just get on with it and yes, definitely go full steam ahead, but it's taken a long time to get here, and I think this is just something that's really, really important to note. They're not my words, they are words lifted exactly from the report, and I'm just asking for them to be noted and recognised, but I'm really delighted that we've finally made it to this point.
So is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Gardner? Is there any discussion on the amendment? If not, do you wish to speak again or no? So I'll put the amendment to you. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. So the amendment will now become the motion. So is there any discussion on the amended recommendation? If not, Councillor Coombs, do you wish to write a reply?
I guess sometimes I get bloody angry because this was stated in the report. It doesn't need to be specifically highlighted as something in addition to the recommendation. All it's doing is just antagonising the Friends of the Oscar W group who are in the gallery tonight, who are looking forward to working cooperatively with council and getting this thing underway. And there is another stop in the system. I think this is totally unnecessary. The first two recommendations, A and B, cover everything that needs to be covered, and I'm just disappointed that we're going down this path again. Thank you.
That ends the discussion, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried.
Let's have a division on that.
So Councillor Coombs is calling a division. A reminder to members that a division is a new vote. Would those voting in the affirmative please stand? So Councillor Thornton, Councillor Miller, Councillor Livingston, Councillor Maidment, Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Gardner. Thank you. Would those voting in the negative please stand? We have Councillor Oliver, Councillor Scott and Councillor Coombs, so it is carried. .4 is the Friends of the Oscar W Incorporated 2024-25 business plan and budget, and there's a recommendation there with 2 dot points for that. Moved Councillor Livingston and seconded Councillor Coombs. Any you want to speak to it first? Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. I just want to note, and in particular comment really to the Friends of the Oscar W. I am very pleased to see the work that you've done. I think it's absolutely fantastic. On a more positive note from the previous recommendation, I look forward to working with you and spending time on the Oscar W and being more collegiate in the future.
Councillor Coombs, did you wish to speak to it yet?
Yeah, I would like to say a few words on this as well. It's another one, a body of work that's taken some time to finalise. And again, I commend General Manager Stacey Bateson and her team on the amount of work she has undertaken together with the subcommittee of the Friends of the Oscar W in working cooperatively to bring this to fruition. The budget for this amounts to $134,000, which includes $17,000 for general operations and material expenses, $30,000 for insurances and $87,000 for slippage expenses this year. So the 3 leases have been approved by council and are ready for signing. And this item and the previous item, if this one's approved, then the leases will be signed at the end of this week, and there will be a ceremony for that. they're all interrelated, and it was no use signing leases unless these other things happen at the same time. So from the figures presented, you will see that the Council and the Friends of the Oscar W financial figures match, although the Friends will be working towards a higher income target than what's proposed. The auditing of the figures over the year will then be used to set the budget for the next year, and the main aim of the Friends is to become less and less reliant on Council budget and become eventually self-funding. They must be commended for this. And aside from compiling management, marketing, operations and financial plans, they're also looking at fine-tuning all of the risks profiles and operating procedures and the like. And as the report also states, the financial implications of adopting this recommendation are considered low. Senior management have been involved in most of the discussions, as have legal advice. So again, this is part of the work, a positive partnership with Council which will benefit the local community, tourism and supporting Goolwas and indeed the region's maritime culture. I'd also commend to you the attached comprehensive business plan, June 2024, especially the executive summary on page 117, followed by the key issues, the vision, the mission statement, the SWOT analysis and more. It's a very comprehensive report, and I'd certainly support this recommendation.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I'm only speaking to say that what I asked for in the last item was certainly not and to be seen as a negative. It was more just a noting. I did say I would support it. I did also say that I'm very delighted that we've reached this point. It certainly has been misinterpreted in what I was asking for. I actually think clear is kind. I'm absolutely delighted that it's all very clear who's responsible for what. I absolutely wish them all the very best. I've travelled on the Oscar. This is about just good administrative practice and everybody being really clear on what's expected. So I do congratulate everybody who's been involved in this. It has been a very long and stressful process for everyone involved, especially new members trying to get up to speed on this. I just was of the understanding that once given we'd endorsed the leases, that there were only minor non-material matters being negotiated. So I am also supporting this one as well. I think it's great that we can all move on. I did just have a question about the numbers that are on page 112. The expense subtotal minus council contribution says 55,700, but when I do the calculations, I get 44,300. So I'm just trying to understand. Nothing turns on it, but I just wanted to be clear that I wasn't missing something or misreading it. And yes, that's what I'm just asking. And also on page 119, there's talk about a DART. And I just wondered, this business plan is just about the Oscar and not any other boats. But apart from that, I'm more than happy to support this, and I'd just like that clarified. Thanks.
Through the chair, on that table we've got expense subtotal of 189,700, and then council contribution of 134,000. 189 minus 134 is 55,700.
Any further discussion?
There was also a secondary question on the DART. Was that clarification on the numbers correct? I'm just a bit worried because I changed them after Stacey put them in there. And if there's a mistake, it's mine.
It's okay. It might be just me misrepresenting. It doesn't change anything. I just wanted the mention of the DART on page 119. The business plan's just about the Oscar. We're not talking about, because it talks about vessels. There's plural in this report, and I'm assuming it's just about the Oscar, not the DART or anything else, any other.
Through the chair, this is just on the Oscar, but I know there is a discussion that needs to occur on the DART and other boats, and that will happen as a separate exercise.
Any further discussion? No, I think It's a good outcome. I can fully understand that Friends couldn't sign a lease until they had all this approved, because you're going to commit to leasing and running a facility without the facility being fitted out, so, and without a budget. I'm looking at those figures here. Now, once they get this and they get a lease, they've got then the chance to move forward, and they'll start working with sponsors. The sponsorship available out there is huge for this boat. It's loved by the community up and down the river, and it will just go ahead in leaps and bounds. And it go back years ago, and it was always very, very strongly supported. It was very viable. They covered all their own costs. Council did put very little money into it at all. It was fantastic. So, Councillor Livingston, do you wish to? No. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 8.5 is the Alexandrina wooden boat strategy, a progress update, and the recommendation that we just received that update. Moved Councillor Oliver. Second, Councillor Livingston. Any discussion?
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to mention under Strategic Priority 1, and thank you, Councillor Miller. Yes, I was hoping that could be also to address the DART. My view is that the DART belongs to the Oscar W and should be handed over to them as part of the wooden boat review, possibly for a future hopeful restoration project. And I'd love to see the two vessels reunited together. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I would like to add, and I'm going to do it as an amendment because I don't know whether it would be supported as a variation, because I just want to add some kind of acknowledgement that a service review of wooden boats will occur in 24-25 to inform 2025-26 budget discussions. And I just want to make sure we do that, because this report was really so I'm asking, well, I guess I need some acknowledgement of that there's a wooden boat, because it's mentioned thoroughly throughout the report. So if we're confident that it will happen, actually I will move it as an amendment, and I'm speaking to that. And I do have questions about the number of boats that we have, and there's one reference that there was one that's in private ownership, or we own it, but it's in private hands being used by a private person. So I don't understand really how many boats we have. So that's why I'm asking for this amendment, that we note and receive that we note that a service review of wooden boats will occur in 2024-25 to inform the 25-26 budget discussions. I think that's really important, given this was meant to be a review of this strategy since it was meant to be annual, and it has never been done. I have many questions about this, but I'm happy to leave them. But I'm just curious about where all the boats are and if they're all accounted for, and where that private one is.
Thank you. Through the Chair, so part of the budget deliberations for 24-25 was a lot of service reviews, of which the wooden boats is one. So there was an amount of money to help engage people if we needed, otherwise we'll do them internally. So absolutely we will be doing that. In terms of where all the boats are, there's different places where the boats are moored and different governance. So part of the service review is actually going through every single boat, and we acknowledge as a team who look after this function that a lot of that information needs to be fully updated. We want to make sure that all contracts or agreements or MOUs, leases, whatever they might be, are all updated, so that we have clear information for insurance as well, so that we can then put that forward as part of the tourism. You know, we're also talking about where one of them, the Brigand, is moored at a different, Coorong Quays in a different place. So, you know, does that make sense for our tourism and things like that? So absolutely acknowledge that we need to make sure we've got all the right information out there, and we are looking at where they all are. If there's one that's in private ownership at the moment, that needs to be worked out where that is and what's happening, and make sure that it's for our people in our community to enjoy.
Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Nicholson. Is there any discussion on the amendment? If not, so I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. So the amendment will now become the recommendation. So as amended. So I'll put Councillor Oliver, do you wish to write a reply? Any discussion, shall I say, on the amendment?
Look, I just think the two are two separate items. I appreciate and support the need for service reviews, but I don't think that needs to hold up the updating and review of the strategy. Thank you.
So I'll put the amended recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. 8.6 is the Fleurieu Aquatic Centre joint venture agreement. There's a recommendation there with 8 dot points, but we need to first put a couple of elected members' names in there who would be representatives on that advisory committee. And we currently have, I think, Councillor Gardner and Councillor Nicholson on there. So how are we going? Are we having anybody else want to come on, or do you two both want to go back on, or where are we? Please. We'll get the names first. Yeah. Councillor Livingston.
I'm happy to move that Councillor Gardner and Councillor Nicholson be appointed. You both happy to go on there? So Councillor Maidment seconding it. Any discussion, Councillor Miller?
Are we doing all of this?
We're just doing the appointment of the two members. So we're nominating the two members and accepting them, and then it will go into the body of the item, and then we'll do the rest of it. So where we are now is we're talking about the appointment of Councillor Gardner and Councillor Nicholson to the panel, and then once we've done that, then we can look at the rest of it. So is there any discussion on the appointment of the two members to that panel?
Sorry, question.
Hang on. All we're talking about is the two representatives on the panel. We're not talking about anything else.
I understand
Well,
that.
yeah, we're just talking about putting those two names into the document so that then the whole document can be considered. Yeah. So is there any discussion around those appointments? No. So I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Now that makes the document complete, and we've got the recommendation which has got 8 dot points. So is there a mover for that? Move, Councillor Scott.
Yes, happy to do so, including the already accepted. So all those around on either side of 2, because 2's already been accepted, hasn't it? Or include 2 as you wish.
No, don't muck it up anymore.
Right.
Or 2's there. What you've done is you've put those 2 names in there. Now it becomes a complete document without any gaps in it.
Right, so I move 1 to 8.
So is there a seconder? Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion? Councillor Maidment.
As auspicing council, presumably this will come up on as every just after every election time when a new chamber is re-elected. Is that correct? We don't necessarily have to be auspicing for the next 100 years.
Through the chair, taking on the auspicing will continue for us to be doing it until there's an alternative motion to go to Victor Harbour, so it could well be for 100 years, yes.
Councillor Miller.
Just a question, it's sort of in relation to Councillor Maidment's. Why are we the auspicing council for a facility that's actually not in our council area?
To be clarified, let's get it clear, it is in our council area. It is right inside our council area. It doesn't encroach any other council. Any further discussion? Councillor Gardner.
Not so much discussion, Your Worship, but this is a real accomplishment between the 2 councils. It's been a long time coming. We've had enormous difficulty getting an EO to stay because of the impossibility of the governance that was required. We had our last meeting on Friday, and there was a great deal of celebration afterwards. I think this is a particularly good way to go for our councils. We are very fortunate at the moment to have a very good relationship with Victor Harbour Council, and we're very fortunate that our 2 CEOs have been so cooperative. I want to say that Danielle Leckie, who has been our admin support for a number of years now, I don't know actually how she managed, because once we lost our last EO, a lot of extra work went on the shoulders of Danielle, and she's really done a sterling job. So I'm really glad that she is continuing as a staff member for the FRACA. It's not going to be a FRACA anymore, is it? Anyway, the Aquatic Centre. And I'm very happy to go back on because I do have a bit of history with this establishment. And while I don't use the Aquatic Centre, I know how important it is for so many people. And I'm sure that our community will be relieved to know that we are going to have a very stable group who will be leading the FRACA in the future.
Any further discussion? If not, I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? It's carried unanimously. (8.7) is delivering a 2040, a 6-monthly progress report. There's a recommendation that we receive that report. Moved Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Scott. Is any discussion relating to that report? Councillor Miller.
Just very quickly, Your Worship, I love this report. This really helps me when someone says, what do I get for my rates? And a report like this really covers the depth and breadth of what council does. And I think it's just a really, really good report. I loved the You Can't Arb That YouTube clips. I don't know if anybody's watched them, but they're really good. They're really, whoever came up with that initiative, I think is great. So yes, I just look forward to the service reviews, and I did wonder, there's mention of a customer satisfaction survey, and I wondered just if someone could give me a little bit more information about that. But on the whole, I just really love this report and I'll happily endorse it.
Thank you. Through the chair, I believe the last formal one was done early 2023, I believe, but we do have the customer service Benchmarking Australia group that does a lot of mystery shopping and gives us information, but we will be looking at putting quite a bit of information into Councillor Oliver's report about customer satisfaction. That's something I've done in a previous workplace and it's really important, so I can't wait to measure us more formally.
Any further discussion? Councillor Scott.
Yeah, this is an amazing report. Huge amount of work to pull all this together. Goodness me, they must have had many sleepless nights. But I have a couple of questions, and I'm rolling through as quick as I can. Our youth sponsorship program. One of the things that I've noticed since, or have been concerned about since we severed ties with the joint youth program with Victor Harbour, is I've just been concerned about what we really are doing for our youth. And I've questioned once before, but I just wonder how much are we really doing? I know there's a theatre, bit of a theatre program happening, but before there was quite a lot of activity and the youth were really involved, and I thought there was some quite smart or it was really helping the ones there. And I went to a number of things with a lady, I can't remember her name, but she had a gathering of mixed age people there. And then when we severed the ties, they went. We weren't going there anymore, but it appeared that we didn't do anything to replace them from our end of the scale, which I was concerned about. Is there anything really much happening in that regard, please?
Through the chair, this was something that I took up on my arrival here to work out why the linkage between Victor Harbour and Alexandrina has stopped. But in my discussions with the team at the time, we're probably doing more since we did that. What we're doing before is putting funding over both councils, but we're doing more in our own. There's lots of initiatives that we've been doing and lots of updates that we're doing. So we might just get something out on the portal, I think, just to spend a little bit more time just highlighting some of those specific areas, and then we may even table that at a council at a later date, and Stacey's given me a thumbs up on doing such a thing.
Right. If I may continue, where it says Middleton pedestrian crossings, that it was jointly funded. My understanding was that it was funded by the department, and we organised the work, but we had to put money into it, did we, as well?
Through the chair, we didn't put money into it, but we did certainly project manage it and did a lot of the organisation. Maybe we should have said jointly achieved with DIT's money, but it was a combined project, but we didn't fund it, no.
in one of the areas, just while I think of it, there's, I think it's connections or whatever it is under one of those headings. There was talk about trails as one of the connecting things, subjects, and I think that we can, without spending very much money, we could start to activate that and have trails through the district. I looked at it 2 or 3 years ago in the last term of council, and then we sort of dropped the ball on it a bit, mainly because one of the trails that I was thinking of was going to take us into an area that in the end I didn't want people to go, because it is a sort of a last back refuge area for animals, and it is the only place in my whole life that I've seen a goanna. And I thought if we have people trooping through there, that's, if there's likelihood of anything to be there, it won't be there after you get a lot of people trooping through, possibly. So I backed off that. But I think we can do some trails, and was worked in with a winter tourism strategy where local hotels and bakeries and cafes and things could really chime in, and people doing a lot of walking would then go back, and you'd guide them towards one of those places. So that was just one of the things that there was, oh goodness, I was in depth reading this when I found the meeting was about to start, I'm afraid. So look, I'm sorry, I think I'm holding up the meeting. There was something else I wanted to ask, but we'll have to, oh, the wetland concepts, they are involved in part of the Rattling plan, that is goodness me. So, and that is, so...
Spoken for more than 5 minutes, which is, you know. So just put a question in writing. Is there any further discussion? No. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Well done. 8.8 is a lease and licence policy activities, April to June 2024. It's a quarterly report. We just receive and note the report. Councillor Miller.
Your Worship, I would just like to declare a general conflict of interest on this one. I will, due to my employment, because my employer gets a mention in this report, but it's just a general conflict. I will stay and participate, but I wasn't here at the start of the meeting, and I only had an opportunity just to review that today, or to send it. I didn't get a chance to send it through today.
So, do we have a mover? Councillor Coomans. Second, Councillor Maidment. Any discussion? Councillor Maidment.
Yes, room 315 Cadell and room 5, I think it is, a bit further on. Is that the building that's been recently purchased by council? And what is the, says it's only holding it over for a further year, so what is the thinking or the planning for that particular building? And I've got another question as well.
Through the Chair, 15 Cadell is the one that we purchased a couple of doors up. In the recent adoption of the budget, there is an option there for private-public partnerships, and that building will be explored a little bit more. And you are correct, it's in a holding over period at this stage, so that once council determines what they're doing with the building going forward, decisions can be made without the burden of leases.
And the second question, and I'm not familiar with the Port Elliot SES buildings, but are they owned by the SES themselves on our land, or why can't the state government relocate them to a better purpose-built place like they have done in other places recently.
Through the chair, I'm not familiar with the Port Elliot site. We'll need to take that one on notice. I know the Middleton one. I don't know the Port Elliot one. Councillor Scott may.
Councillor Scott.
I just wanted to offer to comment that that building where SES is a joint building with CFS and was only built relatively a few years ago, probably within the last 10 years.
Any further discussion? Yep.
Through the chair, given that it's saying landowner's consent for the SES must mean that it is actually ours.
So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Yep. 8.9. Yep.
Just declaring a conflict, material conflict of interest due to my employment, and I will leave the chamber.
8.9 is the Fleurieu Regional Waste Authority third quarter budget review 2023-24. There's a recommendation that we approve that budget. Moved Councillor Oliver. Seconder Councillor Scott. Any discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Against? Councillor Miller, for or against? Okay, please, you've got to stay with us because you put your hand up against, so it's carried unanimously. Right, here we can get Councillor Livingston back. .10 is the land and road policies, or 1 year review. There's a recommendation, there were 3 dot points there, that we approve that and authorise. Move Councillor Scott. Is there a seconder? Councillor Maidment. Is there any discussion? Councillor Coomans.
Yeah, look, just a question. I couldn't quite get a connection here between when we sell community land, that is there an option of putting some sort of rider in there about the proceeds of the sale being spent in the general area? Is that something totally different to what we're looking at here, or is that a possibility? And I've got some words to say if it is a possibility.
Through the chair, first I need to pick up technically you can never sell community land. You would have to revoke that community land to make it operational first. I think that it should probably be treated on a case-by-case basis the way that you're selling it. You shouldn't really be selling something just to get proceeds, because what you need to do is dispose of excess land first. So I mean, sometimes you're not just selling it to spend it on something else. So you probably could put it in the policy, but it's not proposing that at this stage.
Yeah, look, I guess my argument is that we've got a history of where we've identified community land and we've gone through the revocation process, and community consultation is part of that process as well, and invariably we get complaints, opposition to the sale of it, because the community generally thinks whatever the proceeds are just goes back in the general revenue. And I think we've sort of been discussing amongst some members about, well, if we were actually able to, once we get to the stage where we want to dispose of some community lands and revoke it and all the rest of it, that maybe a better selling point for doing that is to actually make some comments about that the proceeds of the sale will actually be used in the area. Now, for example, we had some land in Strath a little while ago, and we had strong opposition to it by the people who are living around it, and we decided not to proceed. But if we'd gone down the track of saying, well, look, the proceeds are going to be used for the Strath, say, dog park, which is not that far away, I wonder what the responses would have been then. And you know, it's just so much time we spend on this. And in the previous period of council, we were saying exactly the same thing. Let's dispose of some land that we don't need and put it to good use. Put the funds to good use. And none of that seemed to be very successful either. So I'm just looking at a way of actually selling, when we do come to a point of wanting to dispose of land, that we actually use those funds in the community that the land is in. And it's got a much higher thing of actually getting support from the community. That's my thinking on it. And if this is a policy document that we can incorporate it into, without saying specifically that, but sort of suggesting that the funds would be spent in the area, I think it's probably a good thing.
Through the chair, I just wanted to mention that administration did propose such a thing at one of the recent meetings. It was with High Marsh Island. There's a vacant block that we're about to go out to consultation on, or have gone out to consultation on, and council at the time actually voted it down when we said that we would propose to spend it in the area. Using this example, it was a vacant block only about 200 or 300 metres from Excelsior Parade, and there was an opportunity to actually do more of the footpath. So I think that not having it in a policy that commits you to doing it every single time, administration can continue to do proposals of surrounding projects, and council on a case-by-case basis can decide whether they take that on board or not.
Any further discussion? Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 8.11 is a confidential order review. There are various items. There's quite a few of them. They're just all items that need to be retained in confidence. And there are about 21 to 22 and 2. So there's a recommendation that we retain them. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Gardner. The seconder, Councillor Maidment. Is there any discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.12 is a delegation, Section 143 Local Government Act, and it's recommendation there with 2 dot points. Move, Councillor Livingston. Seconder, Councillor Scott. Is any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Just a quick question, Worship. With bad debts, are there many, and do they get reported to ARC, or just wondered if we have many bad debts?
Through the chair, there's none that we've written off since in the last couple of years, really. Definitely since this one was done, so I went back and checked on those. When you get rates debts, they never become a bad debt because you have an option to chase it down. It's probably something that we need to review a lot more if there's small debts that need to be written off, because it will cost more to get the funds back, but we haven't for a while. But there is some large debts that we are working with institutions to try and get those back as well.
Any further discussion? So put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. 8.13 is the Chief Executive Officer's handover document. There's a recommendation that document be received. Move, Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Gardner. Any discussion? Councillor Scott.
Yes, I just want to comment. I've read this one into the other, and I think it's as CEO needs to be commended for doing this. I don't remember this happening before, and it's just given us a bit of a cheat sheet to look at, to keep reminding us of what we need to be following up on, seeing that he's not there to follow it up himself. I've read it right through. I think he's done very well, and my appreciation and thanks for doing it. Nigel?
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. Or Councillor Livingston.
Thank you. just in relation to some of the action items that have come out of your report, in particular the Murray-Darling Association representation, will that be coming to a future council meeting shortly?
Through the chair, I was discussing that one this morning, and yes, that will probably come to the August meeting.
Okay, and then I've got another question, if I may, in relation to the meeting to be held in relation to the Gore Beach Lifesavers. Is there a date for that, and will we get a council report on that?
Through the chair, Mr. Harvey is still following up the beach access, talking to other stakeholders. I probably should just remind the council it is not actually council's road, but it's something that we get involved in to further those discussions.
In relation to the lifesavers?
Yeah, maybe I'll get Mr. Baker in his last meeting to come forward. Are you talking about the road entrance? Sorry.
No, I mean that is a question of mine as well, so I'm happy to meld it together.
Can you ask your question again?
So in relation to the meeting regarding the Gore Beach Lifesavers, but also I'm happy to at the same time ask the question in relation to the meeting regarding the vehicle access to Gore Beach as well.
Through the chair, sorry, I'm much more equipped for that meeting with the Lifesavers. We had that meeting this morning. They set out some of the reasons why they think council should continue to fund that. We've asked them to put their reasonings in writing, and they will be sending that to myself and the elected members probably by Friday next week, and then council can determine what their next steps for that one is. Yeah.
And in relation to the access?
In relation to the access, what's the actual question for that one?
When's that? When are the meetings occurring for that?
Through the chair, I will ask Mr. Harvey to talk about that one, unless the mayor wants to talk about it.
Well, they're ongoing. They're looking at solutions to the moment. We're looking at solutions to make it to if you haven't got a four-wheel drive, you can't get down there. So they're looking at that and other options as far as permits and all that sort of gear. So we've had SA Water, SAPOL and ourselves involved in that, and Surf Lifesaving. So it's on. They've got some ideas, but we're just looking at it. Is there any further discussion on that? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 8.14 is the Chief Executive Officer's report for June 2024. Is a recommendation that report be received. Is there a move that we receive that? Councillor Oliver. Seconder, Councillor Livingston. Any questions or discussion regarding an eligibles report? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to ask, and I'm sorry that I'm having to ask this, I just wonder when the Gore Oval leases will be signed. Do we have even a feel for when that might happen? I also was a little bit disappointed that in the upcoming council decisions there's no mention of Lot 10 and the business case next steps. So they're the two things that I'm just looking for a bit of indicative timing on.
Thank you. Through the chair, the discussions are ongoing with the Gore Recreation Grounds Management Committee. It's 6 clubs that have come together. They're having really robust discussions, which is great, but they're monthly meetings. So I think the first meeting I attended when the mayor handed over to me was January this year, I believe, and it's been month by month each, and they weren't even their incorporated body until I think May or maybe it was April. So it is taking a while. What has been probably the hold up at the moment is they really need to understand their budget and what it's going to take to actually have those leases in place. So my team and I have been working really hard with them to provide them with all the information we can, trying to get rough quotes for things, being a community organisation rather than a council, would it be any different? And just last week we provided the very last information that we've been able to get for them, so now they've got everything they need to consider it. And we're also having meetings about the kitchen upgrade as well, to get that all organised, which was a very positive meeting last week that we had. So yes, it is ongoing, but because it's monthly, it's quite difficult to get it any faster. Yeah. And I'm sorry, can you repeat the second question? I think that was to do with me as well.
My second question, well, actually, I have a question about the kitchen, but I guess I'll leave that and ask that offline. It was about lot 10, Your Worship, and just where that is at, because I see there's nothing I see that in the previous report, the lease for the land has been extended for 2 years, and there's no mention of it anywhere that it's a future item coming to council, when it got one sentence, along with lots of other things in the CEO's report just before handover report. But I just would, the question is, because basketball and soccer are moving on, and I just want to understand, the community is asking and wondering, and we hear nothing. There's no communication with the user groups. I just wonder where we're at with it.
Thank you. Through the chair, my key team members who are leading that are actually away at the moment. So the brief information I can give you is that I know that the specialist consultants that we're working with are still working with their contractors to finalise the revised master plan that council approved extra funding for. And then once that's received, then they can finalise the business plan. So that's why it's taking a little bit longer. I can't, unfortunately, right now provide timelines, but I can take that on notice for when the two team members are back next week.
Any further discussion or questions? No. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Getting late. Item 9 is section 41, committees and advisory panels, minutes and reports. 9.1 is the minutes of the section 41 Climate Emergency and Environment Committee of the 3rd of June 2024. There's a recommendation there that we receive and note that report. Moved Councillor Nicholson. Seconded Councillor Livingston. Any discussion on that item? Not. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.2 is a report from the section 41 Climate Emergency and Environment Committee. It's the resignation of a committee member, and there's a recommendation there of the committee and administration. Move Councillor Livingston. Seconder Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion? Not. I will put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Where are we? This one here. 9.3 is the section 41 committee minutes of the Heritage Advisory Committee, and there's a recommendation that they receive and note those minutes. Moved Councillor Maidment. Seconder Councillor Oliver. Any discussion relating to those minutes? If not, I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.4 is the report from the section 41 Heritage Advisory Committee pre-approved road names list, and there's a recommendation of names from the committee and also administration. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Gardner. Seconder, Councillor Scott. Any discussion? It's all good. Councillor Scott, you want to change some of the names? Or?
Yeah, no. I just want to commend the research that's been done on this. I think it's great getting those old names and perpetuating them with street and road names. So I just want to acknowledge that. And a lot of them, the people's names are relevant, and the birds and vegetation names are appropriate. So well done to whoever did pull that together. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. You had a question? No. Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Sorry.
Yeah. Carried unanimously, yeah.
No, it's not unanimous.
No, carried, sorry. Yeah. So you just have to help me a bit with the hands, guys. So it's we get it right. 9.5 is a report from Section 41, Heritage Advisory Committee. Mrs Lush's Corner, and there's a recommendation from the committee and administration. Moved, Councillor Gardner.
Yes, can I speak?
Yep.
Thank you. This is a really interesting little story, because if you look at the plaque which we have received, Mrs Lush is Mrs Joe Lush. She hasn't even got her own name, and so we've discovered it's Florence. And so we think that it's time in this day and age for women to actually own their own names. And so the plaque that we're going to be putting up will actually acknowledge Florence.
Do we have a seconder, Councillor Livingston? Any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I just wonder why, for $1,760, we have to wait a whole year for this to be funded. If I'm reading this report correctly, it's to be considered in the next year's draft budget, 20526, when, you know, we can find a lot of money for other things, but this is, there's a cost of approximately, unless I've got a comma or a decimal in the wrong place, it's $1,760. We can't do it. I just wonder why we can't just do it.
Through the chair, that was my little amendment for that. It is $1,760. I think council asked me to prepare a budget with no fat in it to make it really tight. I've delivered a very tight budget. I think if I give $1,760 today, what's it going to be tomorrow? What's it going to be the next day? I think any recommendation that comes to council with additional expenditure which wasn't first budgeted for, we need to put in for next year's budget. But as just an officer's recommendation, you can change that and spend it immediately. But this is the clear message I got from council before, is that this is the budget and this is what they want to try and achieve, and anything extra needs to be considered timely.
Is there any further discussion, Councillor? Another, hang on, let's start again. Are there any more questions or comment? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I absolutely agree. I think every single budget adjustment we do is done at a quarterly budget review or not done at all. If it's not in our current annual business plan, I accept that, and yes, I agree, but maybe this could be something considered at a quarterly budget review. But given that answer, then I hope that with everything, we hold the line on that approach, because I absolutely agree, whether it's $1,000 or $90,000, you know, yes, absolutely, no changes to the budget unless there are quarterly budget reviews and considered in context of everything else. So I accept that answer, and I'll honour it. Thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Yes, my comment is not so much about the plaque, but about the location of the corner. Sorry, not the naming of the corner. It seems extraordinary that I can remember the house, the little house being there over the bank and everything, that how it came to be a Galpin reserve that went over what is known as Mrs Lush's Corner. Can we have a better delineation and have that? I hope that this sign can be seen from when it's put up, seen fairly easily, so that people are aware of it, because it is a landmark, and not be sort of swallowed by being in a bigger reserve. Is that possible, or is that not possible?
Just to clarify, the Galpin Reserve starts right at the spot where Mrs Lush's cottage was. It goes on from there. You've got the yacht club, the Gorwagata Yacht Club, the car park, and a little bit of land, and there's a little bit of a dirt boat ramp where you can launch dinghies, and there's a jetty. And that jetty is Mrs Lush's jetty. It's been called that for as long as I can remember. and I've been here 30 odd years, and it was called that when I got here, and it's still called it now. And so that identifies that spot. So that spot's already identified, and then Galpin Reserve moves on from there. So there's no need to mess around changing the name of the bit of lawn. It's fine. So is there any further discussion on that? I've probably clarified where it is. Okay, it's quite easy to go and find because it's a decent jetty. So a lot goes out and does a bend on it. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.6 is a report from the Section 41 Heritage Advisory Committee, the Ashbourne Pioneer Memorial Reserve. There's a recommendation of the committee and also a recommendation of administration. Moved, Councillor Maidment. Maidment, yep. Seconder, Councillor Miller, you seconding it?
Yes, are we doing these together? Is that what we're doing?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
So are you, I'll just clarify, you're seconding it?
Yes, but I was going to add the words. I just want to make sure I'm dealing with the right one. This is the Ashbourne report. Is that right?
Ashbourne Pioneer Memorial Hall.
That future budget considerations at quarterly budget reviews to the... am I moving it or seconding it? I'm moving, seconding it. Because it talks about, note that a further report will be presented to Council detailing any recommendations for additional detailed assessment reports, works management and any associated future budget considerations at quarterly budget reviews, in a similar vein to the CEO's comments before and whatever I think we should do without any changes to our budget. Thank you.
No, I prefer to leave it as it is. Nothing's going to happen in 5 minutes with this. It's been on the agenda for the Heritage Advisory Committee for well over 12 months now. And this is just a recommendation from the Heritage Advisory Committee to have a look at it. It's a reserve that should have been will be captured as maintained as level C, which is not an onerous task for council staff to look after it. And the report asks, and we're not, to look at the bridge and make sure that's in, not going to fall into the river and create a barrier there. Excuse me, and that outcome will be returned to the Heritage Advisory Committee. So that'll take a few months. This is all 25, 26 in any case. So it'll be discussed at the budget at that time.
Is there any further discussion? No? So I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? Against, Councillor Miller? Are you against? Yeah, but sorry, but you put, I'm sorry, but you put your hand up when everybody else had put theirs down. So let's start again. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 10 is council member reports. 10.1 is the presiding members report. There's my report for June be received. Move Councillor Oliver. Second, Councillor Livingston. Any questions or discussion regarding that report? Not much in it, so I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 10.2 is council member activity reports. There's a report from a Deputy Mayor, Councillor Gardner, and there's the report that for June be received. Moved, Councillor Livingston. Seconder, Councillor Nicholson. Are there any questions regarding that report, or are there any elected members' reports relating to business done on behalf of council you wish to add? No, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 11 is confidential items.
South Coast Television. Your community, your voice.